Scene script. Have you ever wondered how a single individual can shape the course of global politics for better or for worse? Meet Henry Kissinger, a man as influential as he is controversial. Henry Kissinger, born Heinz Alfred Kissinger in 1923, fled Nazi Germany to become an American citizen, a Harvard scholar, and eventually one of the most significant figures in U.S. foreign policy. As National Security Advisor and later Secretary of State under Presidents Nixon and Ford, he was a key player on the global stage during some of the most turbulent times in modern history. Kissinger's name is synonymous with realpolitik, a pragmatic approach to politics that prioritizes national interests over ideological or ethical considerations. His influence extended well beyond the confines of Washington, D.C., shaping events in Vietnam, Chile, and the Middle East. His diplomacy skills were instrumental in opening relations with China and diffusing tensions with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But Kissinger's legacy is far from straightforward. His tenure was marked by a series of controversial decisions that continued to reverberate today. From secret bombings in Cambodia and Laos to backing authoritarian regimes in South America and Asia, his actions have been the subject of intense debate. While some laud his strategic acumen and diplomatic prowess, others view his approach as a dangerous precedent, prioritizing power politics over human rights and international law. Allegations of war crimes, violations of international law, and support for authoritarian regimes have swirled around his legacy, painting a picture of a man who wielded power with little regard for its consequences. Kissinger's story is a complex tapestry of power, politics, and pragmatism. His influence on global affairs is undeniable, but so too is the controversy that follows in his wake. But underneath this prestigious exterior lies a history of decisions and actions that continue to spark debates around the world. Born in 1923 to a Jewish family in Germany, Kissinger's early life was marked by upheaval and uncertainty. The dark shadow of the Nazi regime hung heavy over his childhood, forcing his family to flee to the United States in 1938. This tumultuous start to life would later shape Kissinger's worldview, instilling in him a deep understanding of the precarious balance of power and the potential for chaos in international relations. Upon arriving in America, Kissinger threw himself into his new life with a fervor for learning. He quickly mastered English, becoming an American citizen in 1943. His intellectual curiosity led him to serve in the U.S. Army, where he was quickly recognized for his remarkable aptitude and strategic thinking. Kissinger's military service took him back to Germany, where he witnessed firsthand the devastating consequences of unchecked power and the importance of robust diplomacy. After the war, Kissinger returned to the U.S. and pursued his academic interests with a scholarship at Harvard University. Here, he delved into the intricacies of international relations and diplomacy, earning a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and eventually a Ph.D. His doctoral thesis, titled A World Restored, Metternich, Castlereagh, and the Problems of Peace, 1812 to 1822, is considered a seminal work in diplomatic history. It offered a deep analysis of 19th century diplomacy, and it was here that Kissinger first articulated his belief in realpolitik, the idea that power, more than ideals or ethics, is the driving force in international politics. Kissinger's academic pursuits laid a robust foundation for his future career. His keen understanding of power dynamics and his belief in realpolitik would heavily influence his approach to diplomacy, leading to both remarkable achievements and contentious decisions. These formative years laid the groundwork for a career that would make Kissinger a household name and a contentious figure. As National Security Advisor and later Secretary of State, Kissinger was instrumental in shaping U.S. foreign policy. His tenure, however, was marked by controversial decisions and actions that have provoked intense debates among historians, political analysts, and the general public. Kissinger's influence was perhaps most evident during the Vietnam War. He was the mastermind behind U.S. involvement in the conflict, endorsing a policy that extended the war rather than ending it. In a controversial move, he authorized secret bombings in Cambodia and Laos. These decisions led to civilian casualties and significant destruction, tainting his legacy with the sorrowful echoes of war. Moreover, Kissinger's foreign policy often seemed to prioritize realpolitik, a pragmatic, power-centric approach, over human rights. This was starkly apparent in his support for authoritarian regimes in various parts of the world. In Chile, for instance, he backed the dictatorial rule of Augusto Pinochet. During Argentina's dirty war and Indonesia's occupation of East Timor, Kissinger's policies were seen as prioritizing U.S. strategic interests over the human rights of the people in these countries. This stance drew significant criticism from human rights activists and international communities. His approach to diplomacy also raised numerous ethical concerns. Kissinger was involved in clandestine operations, including the overthrow of democratically elected governments in countries like Chile. These secretive and unorthodox methods were criticized for undermining the democratic fabric of the nations involved, and for compromising the ethical integrity of U.S. foreign policy. Adding fuel to the fire of controversy, Kissinger has faced allegations of war crimes and violations of international law. His role in policies that led to civilian casualties, particularly during the Vietnam War and the secret bombing campaigns in Cambodia and Laos, has led some critics to label him a war criminal. These serious allegations continue to cast a long shadow over his reputation and legacy. Despite his diplomatic achievements, such as the détente with the Soviet Union and the opening of relations with China, Kissinger's impact on global affairs has been controversial. Critics argue that the geopolitical implications and long-term consequences of his actions have often been detrimental to various regions of the world. Finally, the honors and accolades bestowed upon Kissinger have been a source of contention. Critics argue that these awards gloss over the controversies surrounding his actions and fail to hold him accountable for the negative consequences of his policies. They believe that the ethical and moral considerations of his decision-making should not be overlooked or disregarded when evaluating his life and legacy. Kissinger's career undoubtedly was marked by significant achievements, yet it was also characterized by actions that were, and continue to be, deeply controversial. His realpolitik approach, his support for authoritarian regimes, his involvement in clandestine operations, and the allegations of war crimes have all sparked heated discussions about his legacy. It's clear that Kissinger's tenure was marked by actions that continue to ignite heated discussions. His life and career serve as a complex study of power, ethics, and the consequences of foreign policy decisions. While some laud Kissinger for his diplomatic skills, others condemn him for the human cost of his policies. This dichotomy frames the ongoing debate about Henry Kissinger's legacy, a legacy that, to this day, remains a subject of intense scrutiny and discussion. His critics accuse him of war crimes, notably in the context of the Vietnam War and the secret bombing campaigns in Cambodia and Laos. They argue that his policies led to countless civilian casualties, a heavy price paid for strategic goals. Some even question the legality of his actions under international law, fueling the controversy that surrounds his name. But the allegations don't stop there. Kissinger has been criticized for his support of authoritarian regimes. During his tenure, the United States backed governments in Chile, Argentina, and Indonesia, governments that were known for their human rights abuses. Critics argue that this support was a clear case of realpolitik, prioritizing strategic interest over human rights. Yet despite these criticisms, Kissinger has been celebrated and awarded numerous prestigious honors. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973 for negotiating a ceasefire during the Yom Kippur War. This award, however, is one of the most controversial in the history of the Nobel Committee, with 2 members resigning in protest. His supporters argue that he was a brilliant diplomat who navigated a complex global landscape with skill and nuance. They point to his role in détente with the Soviet Union and the opening of relations with China as proof of his strategic genius. They argue that his actions, while sometimes controversial, were necessary in the face of the geopolitical realities of the time. Yet it's impossible to ignore the ethical questions that loom large over his legacy. Kissinger's approach to foreign policy, characterized by secrecy and a disregard for traditional norms, raises serious questions about the methods used to achieve diplomatic success. As we reflect on Kissinger's life and career, we are left to grapple with the uncomfortable reality of a man celebrated for his diplomacy, yet condemned for his controversial decisions. This unsettling legacy serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and contradictions inherent in the world of international diplomacy. The story of Henry Kissinger serves as a stark reminder of the complexities of political power and the ethical dilemmas it can present. His tenure under Presidents Nixon and Ford was marked by controversial foreign policy decisions, leading to civilian casualties and significant destruction. Critics argue that his approach often prioritized strategic interests over human rights, supporting authoritarian regimes and employing unorthodox, secretive methods. Allegations of war crimes have added fuel to the controversy surrounding his legacy. Yet, despite these criticisms, there are those who admire Kissinger for his diplomatic skills and strategic thinking. His role in negotiating international agreements like the détente with the Soviet Union and the opening of relations with China cannot be disregarded. Whether you admire him or condemn him, one thing remains certain: Henry Kissinger has left an indelible mark on the landscape of global politics, and his legacy continues to provoke thought and debate to this day.